Hello, welcome to a very special episode of the Gamesline Podcast. We're talking about Zeno Clash. We're doing it in a game club style. I am joined by Lily.
Hello.
And John.
Hi, how's it going?
Zeno Clash, 2009 game, first-person brawler, also kind of a shooter. First game from Ace Team, which has been kicking along for 20 years now, making some of the coolest, unique games you can find. Do either of you have any other experience with Ace Team?
For the most part, no. This was honestly my first experience with anything they've made.
Same here, yeah. I'm looking through this and I've never played any of these.
I mean, I do know about the Eternal Cylinder, but entirely vicariously. I know a few people who've played it. I've watched a few streamers play it. It seems like an interesting premise. Actually, I lied. I have played one other of their games. I have played Abyss Odyssey.
And how's that?
I personally didn't care for it, but I think that would also kind of, at a certain point, I would kind of want to try it again before I had a fully solid opinion, because I didn't finish it.
What'd you think about the Eternal Cylinder?
I mean, I think it kind of... I guess from what I've established from both Zeno Clash and in the Eternal Cylinder, just kind of establishes themselves as their dedication to the sort of surrealistic approach in terms of their visuals and their mechanics.
John, what do you think about the aesthetics of Ace Team?
I mean, just from what I've seen in Zeno Clash, I will say I have heard of their other stuff. You know, like I had seen Rock of Ages and Deadly Tower of Monsters in the past, but I mean, it's not like fully my bag. There were some bits in Zeno Clash where I was like, oh, this is like a cool set piece, but overall I was just kind of like, I'm not really feeling it too much. There's some, unique usage of colors, and it's very grimy. It's very, there are some vistas that are really pretty at times, but yeah.
Well, even just reading that one interview you posted in the Gamesline server, I think it was really interesting how dedicated they were to the aesthetics, specifically, of everything they made in regards to Zeno Clash, just because of, how they came up with so many concepts, and it kind of seemed like it outstripped their ability to quickly make mechanics to encompass them.
Yeah, I think you can tell in this game that this is a very artist-heavy team, because there's so many little bits of the environment and even NPCs that you just speed right past and they don't have time to linger on.
I mean, if I could say that as one of the strengths of it, I've said repeatedly that games are, in their nature, because of the way that they're made, they are kind of leaning toward an impressionistic medium. It is kind of interesting because the way that it jumps around, it never does like a hard cut in a way that would be disorienting, but its willingness to jump around both in time and location kind of creates a feel where you never really truly feel comfortable in where you are in time or in space. And I think, I could understand why a person would be disarmed by something where it's suddenly I'm somewhere else and something new is happening to me. But I think that kind of thing leads to the feeling of its pace being bracing and interesting.
John, how did you feel about the pacing?
I didn't mind the pacing. I thought it was you're thrust between two different time frames that are eventually going to collide into this single moment. You start off the game running away after committing a murder, and then you are escaping that, and then you jump back to leading up to explaining why you did that. And so you're moving forward, but also moving forward in the past as well until you eventually round out the story completely. Which I think is very interesting structure-wise, at least.
It is kind of funny, because in the way that it was presented, the game, not even a different game, the thing that it made me think of, funnily enough, was Mad Max Fury Road.
Sure, yeah.
Say more?
Well, I mean, again, in the same way that film is structured in a way where the entire first act is kind of fleeing from things. And then you kind of reach another period where you have to realize you can't simply just run away from your problems, and you need to turn back and face them head on. In a very similar way, you kind of even have a very similar set of locations where it's like, okay, you have the horrible hell swamp, you have the desert at the end of everything, and then you kind of just need to double back and face the problem that you caused at the onset of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of you have a favorite grotesque character?
No.
I did like the sniper. I liked the sniper a lot.
Yeah, the sniper's pretty cool. I think, even though this is a fairly dense game, I think one of the weaknesses of it is it does repeat itself just a little bit too much, but I was happy to see the sniper again.
The fact of the matter is that you're using a lot of different weaponry in it, and it's really funny because, like, the repetition of characters in it kind of lends itself to a question of how lethal anything is in this game.
Yeah, I don't think anybody dies in this game.
Because you're throwing grenades at people and they just kind of shrug it off.
The people of Xenozoic are tough cookies, and I think it really helps the game that you're not fighting an army of anonymous people. Everybody has a name, everybody has a unique model.
I'll be honest, I think that me not really caring about any of the characters was a big reason why I kind of walked away from this game, being like, I don't know, I don't really care. Like, there's a lot of cool concepts here. Like, I like the idea of the first-person combat. I like the idea of the structure, but I just think the actual meat of what I was given here, I just walked away from it being like, I don't know what to say. I was just like, all right, it's.
What would you have liked to see more from it?
I'm not really sure. I just think that it felt like it didn't really have anything to say. You're just this guy who, you know, killed somebody, this like leader like of the tribe, and you're just kind of running away, but then you run into some random ass big dude who's just like, I'm gonna fix it. Don't worry. And then you just go there, and then you just go back, and it's like, oh shit, actually you didn't kill anybody. The tribal leader is still alive, and then you're just like, all right.
You break their knees a bunch.
You shoot the knees a whole lot, and I mean, I thought those boss fights weren't very good. I thought that, again, I think the concept of the fist fighting is kind of cool, but I didn't really enjoy it that much in practice. Like, it was a lot of feeling like I was dodging and getting hit when I shouldn't have been getting hit, and there was just a lot of, like, the guns introduce a lot of really shitty concepts, I think, like you know, like, you're focused on, especially right near the end, you're focused on fighting a bunch of characters coming at you once, but then someone will be over there shooting at you, and getting shot will interrupt your attacks, and so it's not really something you can full on, you know, like, control. You're not able to really, like, cart around bullets and all that, and all the, like, big bodies also have, like, really weird hitboxes too. Like, whenever I would fight the, like, elephant guy or the bear guy, they would do that charge move, and I would move out of the way, and I would be, like, full on away from them, and they would knock me down, like, every time, and I was just like, this is very annoying. Like, I don't know, it feels very much like they're trying to guide you into playing a specific way, and then you try to do that, and then it starts to feel like, actually, you know what, no, it's just better to just use grenades or to shoot them, and I'm just like, I don't know, I think that having guns in this game at all is dumb. I think they should not have done that whatsoever. It should have just been punching. That would have been way more interesting.
Lily, did you have a similar or different experience with the combat?
The thing is, I think that I understand. Like, if someone felt like how John felt, I wouldn't need to ask why. But I also feel like, because, like, this is like a Source Engine game, you know, it tickles the part of my brain that kind of likes there to be a little jank, I suppose. Like, when you use, like, the charged, like, heavy strike where you run backward and then forward, just something about the way it all functions with the inherent weight to everything. What I'm saying is that I didn't need this game to feel like Sekiro, where I could perfect parry everything and nothing could ever touch me. I kind of liked that it was a little scrappy and imperfect, I suppose.
Yeah, I think this game gave me a really good feeling of constantly struggling for survival rather than like mastering any encounter. It always felt frenetic. I always felt the threat of death. I was never Sekiroing through these encounters. I was always just barely making it through, eating the plants along the way, ending the fight with a little bit of health left. And I think the box art is very accurate to what this game feels like. I would agree with John that the punching feels better than the guns do, because they make the punches feel so impactful with the sound and also with the physics, the way that characters just go flying when you punch them hard.
See, the thing is that it's funny because I think I have some analogous games that are even comparably placed in time that kind of predisposed me to feeling better about the game than maybe someone else could. Like, have either of you heard of the Namco title Breakdown at all?
Yeah.
I have not heard of this one at all, no.
So Breakdown is also kind of, and it released in a somewhat similar time frame. It came out in 2005? 2004? 2004. And it is also kind of like a similarly bodily, visceral first-person brawling game. And then the game that I actually kept thinking about the most while playing this was actually Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, if you're familiar with that one at all.
Yeah, that was cited as an inspiration.
It feels very similar. And obviously it's doing a lot different in terms of like... So instead of having like a dedicated kick key, you have like it based directionally based on where you're looking on the enemy, which I think sometimes controls a little funnily, but the fact that it is one studio went on to become, this kind of more emphasis on art, and then the other studio was, Arcane, may they rest in peace. It is very interesting in how that divergence of inspiration can take place.
I really think the art helps to sell the combats by making these characters so distinctive because you have to be up close to them, by making them really just grimace and contort and twist when you punch them. I think even though the mechanics of this are like not that different from doing hand-to-hand in like an Elder Scrolls game, the arts and the sound and the physics make it feel so much better even though it's mechanically similar.
I can agree with that. I mean, I think a big issue with something like an Elder Scrolls combat is fundamentally just how non-reactive everything is until the hit that kills them. Like, especially in something like a Morrowind or an Oblivion, where basically the only time you get some kind of connection to mechanical catharsis is you hit them on the final hit and then they splay out like spaghetti people. Whereas in something like this, you hit them with your strongest attacks, and there's never really a question of whether it hurts them or not, which I appreciate.
And I think at least I felt really encouraged to be a dishonorable fighter in this game. To kick people when they're down, to hit the big guys with a big hammer even when they're like cowering for mercy. I think this does a really good job of, in the gameplay, selling the vision of a brutal, lawless world where there is no honor.
There's that, but I can't help but feel like I don't think this game is humorless, is the thing. There is clearly an underlying understanding that there are things that are funny in this game.
Yes. Examples?
Well, I mean, it does do a cutaway to tell you that a character is defined entirely by pissing herself and dying alone, so that did admittedly get a laugh out of me, maybe when it shouldn't have.
John, to your point about like the message of this game, I do think the themes of this game have to do with like the what do you call the people of the woods? The Corwids?
Mm-hmm.
They're like radically free to the point of irrationality. They are not slaves to their biological needs. They are not slaves to common sense. So if they want to do things like just piss themselves and starve, then they'll do it, and who can stop them? And then
or the one that walks only in straight lines.
yes, kind of like us playing this linear game. It makes you think. And then the golem is like all the way on the other side, where he is the omniscient lawbringer, and at the end he says that things are going to change around here. I'm going to connect all of you, because apparently he has the power to like connect people's bodies so they all feel the same thing. When one person gets hurt, everyone else gets hurt. And that is like just radical order. He's the man who solves the Rubik's Cube. He brings order to the chaos. And then the father, mother, city, society is like in the middle of that, where it's lawless relative to what the three of us are used to, but they had more organized than the Corwids, but from the golem's perspective, kind of like a fallen society.
I mean, I guess I should ask, what is your impression of Father Mother as a character in the narrative?
This game does, I think, a really impressive thing, where literally the villain of this game is a trans woman who steals babies to raise them as her own. But I think they have a lot of sympathy for all of the characters of this game, for all of these strange, grotesque creatures. That Father Mother clearly really loves her children, and her children love her, and like she is a good parent, and she's building something good here. But also, she is stealing babies to do that. Is that good or bad? Who could say? But I'm glad that they depict her with a lot of empathy.
I guess I feel two ways about it. So, on the one hand, we are kind of trapped in the perspective of a character that clearly feels some kind of betrayal about all of this. It's not especially articulated from him, but you definitely get the impression that there is a feeling of this, especially with his refusal to articulate it out loud. I can't say that I necessarily love it. I guess I would say that the reason why I don't feel the overflowing of empathy, perhaps, is because you do shoot them in the knees and then beat them to the verge of death with your fists.
True.
But I don't know. I guess I feel complicatedly about it because where I praised the pacing before as like one of those things where it keeps you constantly engaged, I also think you could articulate it as the same feeling of being engaged like in a Call of Duty campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Where because every moment is thrust upon you, and because of the brevity of the game itself, you kind of don't have the ability to linger in your own thoughts for very long.
Yeah.
And it is funny that you did mention this character that walks in straight lines exclusively as their analog for a player in a linear game, because like when you look at their design, they literally do have like handlebars gafted to their helmet.
Yeah.
Where they are steering themselves like one would steer a character in a video game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think like the story for me was like the thing that did the least for me, because like, yeah, I get why John would think that like it is difficult to resonate with like individual characters, especially because our impressions of them are so fragmentary. And I guess like I think in another way that it kind of, I don't say this to be dismissive. I love art that makes me feel in ways that I wouldn't feel traditionally, but it does kind of have the vibe of a fever dream in a sense.
Yes. I definitely I'm glad I took some space to just like let this game sit in my head after finishing it, because it does feel like something I have to digest a bit to understand what they're going for. It's not very apparent when you're just speeding through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I played it like when you first said you wanted to do this concept. I played it and then I sat with it. Though I guess, like, again, for something so tight as this experience, did you try like the arena challenges thing at all?
I did not know.
I do agree with the devs' impression that they are perhaps not the most balanced things in the world.
Oh yeah?
They are, in a word, asymmetric, to say the least. I can't really imagine what they really include in a game like this, especially as tight as it is. Because again, I don't really want to play this specifically for the mechanics. Like, it is kind of a gestalt of all of its parts.
Yeah, that's definitely why I have no interest in the arena mode. I mean, it's just like a tricky business thing, right? Because I think the price of this game now is what, maybe like $10, which I think is a reasonable price for just this pretty good 5-hour campaign. But if they were originally selling this for $40, I guess they felt that they had to put something in there to extend the playtime.
Were they originally selling this for $40?
That's an assumption. I'm not sure what the original price was, but it was probably more than $10.
I would perhaps need to do some research, but...
Yeah, we would. Let me see if there's like a Steam...
However, I can say, from looking at SteamDB real quick, we can say that there are 2 people playing right now, so the game is not dead.
Wow.
That's all that matters in the modern parlance, so, we have that going for us.
I don't know. Yeah, I played like half of this game a while back, and then I just kind of sat there and was just like, I don't know. I kind of had to be goaded to keep playing more of it. I don't know. I just...
What do you know? Say some things about this game.
In what way? Like,
how did you feel when you were playing it?
Kind of bored. I thought that there were times where I was like, okay, yeah, the combat is interesting.
Interesting how?
In that it has pretty unique mechanics where you're dodging and weaving. It felt kind of like real boxing in a way, but then again, I just thought that they start introducing the guns and the weapons, and I think that makes it fall apart pretty quickly.
How so?
Just because you're not really able to focus on hand-to-hand combat as much, because you're trying to focus on a character that's trying to attack you, and then you'll hear someone be like, I'm gonna shoot you, and then now you have to disengage and dodge, and then you got to try to re-engage, and it makes it so just stilted, and you don't get into any kind of flow whatsoever.
Okay.
And I didn't really like. I thought most of the character, I know that the characters have some, they're all supposed to be kind of grotesque and weird. I couldn't really get attached to anyone. I got pretty pissed off over time about Jamiroquai Hat Girlfriend, because she was supposed to be fucking shooting and she never shot anybody, I think, the entire time that I played that game. So there were a lot of times where it was like, oh yeah, no, you're supposed to, you're getting attacked by like 5 or 6 characters at once, but she'll back you up, and she did not back me up. She didn't do shit for me the entire game. So I was just basically doing big horde battles by myself a lot of the time. And again, like, I liked some of the environments. I liked the really, like, the very large and interesting, like, animals that you would run into. Like, I liked, those, like, big, like, I guess, giraffe-looking things. I thought it was kind of cool when you fought the hunter on the, like, whale carcass. Like, that's kind of cool. I didn't care for the exploding squirrels. I thought that was just kind of annoying.
It sounds like you wanted to have a flow of punch, 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 but the game kept interrupting that.
I mean, that's part of it, but I just wasn't really interested in, like, anything else that it was really serving up to me in general, Like, I can see how you all took some stuff away from it, and like I don't think that this is like a bad game or anything. I just think it's not something that I come to games for, I guess. Like, I just played that and I was just kind of like, all right, sure. You know, I don't know. I mean, I know that being on a podcast about a game and doing this and kind of having this reaction is maybe lame, but I don't know. It was just like, yeah, you know, this was the assigned game. I played it and I was just kind of like, eh.
I think I really appreciated the fact that because there are so many enemies and they also have guns and will shoot you, a lot of this game is about running and about spacing. I felt frenetic. I felt like a rat scurrying around the battlefield, trying to get my hits in, knocking someone down so that they were disabled for like 5 seconds while I worked on somebody else. I liked having to rush from person to person like that.
Again, in theory, I thought that was cool, but in practice, I just didn't like how it felt whatsoever, and I felt like I was just getting shot a bunch near the end of the game when I didn't really have a way to counteract that, especially because, again, I feel like they set some of those set pieces up to be like, okay, you're gonna have someone who, you know, obviously I don't think I don't think that they need to hand me everything on a silver platter, but it definitely felt like there were combat encounters where it was like, yeah, we're gonna have these characters, or the enemies have weapons, and that'll be a challenge, but that will be slightly offset by Deidre having, you know, being able to cover you. And she just didn't fucking do that for me, like, the entire game. So, I mean, maybe if she did, maybe I would feel a bit better about some of those combat encounters. But again, I just feel like everything that I walked away from this game with was cool in concept. I think it's neat that they tried that. I didn't really care about how they did it, but I respect that they tried it.
One thing I found in the Eurogamer review, they referenced the launch price of 15 British pounds. Lily, what did you think about having the punching balanced by enemies having guns?
So, I think that there are quite a few skills that one needs to kind of have in their mind while playing a game like this. I think that a lot of games have this property where if your execution skill is high enough, you simply don't need to engage with the other concepts the game wants to educate you on. I said Sekiro before, right? As an example. When your ability to parry in Sekiro is high enough, you can kind of zoom fully in to the experience of only parrying. You don't need to worry about your positioning, you don't need to worry about your shinobi tools, you don't need to worry about any of these things. In much the same way, I think that a game that refuses to give you an easy sort of, here is a scenario, we are not going to allow you to brute force this through execution, can be narratively and mechanically interesting. To answer the original question more simply, I think that for the most part, I personally didn't have a ton of problems, specifically with the gun enemies, kind of generally because I thought I had a pretty good grasp of sightlines. Like, you're never really in an arena where you don't have some kind of positioning cover to deal with enemies with arms, and a lot of the time, a lot of the enemies are pretty easily dealt with the same way they knock weapons out of your hands. You just run up to them and shoulder check them and they'll drop it. The funny thing is that I've also been playing Sifu recently, and while Sifu is a much more mechanically polished game, I kind of see the same through line in a sense, where the enemies in that game are never going to give you a scenario where they are perfectly waiting to synchronize their attacks in a way that would be convenient to you. So you are forced to adapt in ways that may be flow breaking to some, but to me, I guess I kind of appreciate having my situational sense tested.
Yeah, I think the weapons they're really powerful, and if it's a one-on-one, you can really bully someone with a weapon. But they take so long to reload, it's actually hard to hold on to them for very long in a one-on-one, in a one versus more than one fight. And you can really just make sure that enemies are disarmed by making sure you are charging them rather than focusing on one person. Because I think the way to lose in this game is to focus too much on one person rather than to focus on the group and how to manage the group.
Yeah, I mean, it wants you to be essentially using crowd control by knocking people down, because the grenades as a damage tool kind of suck.
Mm-hmm.
But really what they're supposed to do is be the tool that stops people from being on top of you all the time. At least that's how I felt about it.
I mean, they show you that in the intro where you use a grenade to get the father, mother not be on top of you.
Yeah, in a very much more dramatic way, but I don't think that's how you usually should deal with your parents.
What more is there to say about Zeno Clash? Because this does feel like it's such a dense game, but it's also such a self-evident game, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think the parts that are most interesting about it are kind of apparent from the moment you see the box art. You do see the box art and you go, yep, that's the game.
I really liked feeling, I always like feeling, and I felt it in this game, the presence of a person making a very human decision. Like, how do you do a shooting tutorial? What if your teacher cuts off a chicken's head and you have to shoot the chicken before it dies? No one else would make that decision. That feels very characteristically Zeno Clash.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is kind of interesting because in a way, people harp on about, showing, not telling. But the fact that that is a decision a character would make at all is, in its own sense, characterizing.
I also liked when you get in a slightly more open map in the first sniper fight, the way that they do the boundaries is to have worms fly out of the ground and start eating you, which is so much more characterful than exiting an arena in a Battlefield game.
Yeah, you don't have the get back in the arena or we're going to kill you message.
Though you're being killed because worms are eating you.
You can't negotiate with worms, it is true.
John, did you have any little bits and bobs like that you appreciated?
No, not really. So a good amount of the visuals were cool. I feel like I kind of have said what I thought already.
That's what I'm asking, is which ideas are cool, which of the visuals are cool.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is I kind of feel like I've gone over most of it, where it was I liked some of the animal designs, I liked how grotesque some of the character designs were, I did like some of the colors in the landscapes and the vistas, and the boat level had a really cool palette to it.
Did you notice the little men on the crossbow?
No, I did not notice that.
The weapons on the projectiles on the crossbow weapon are just little heads with nose rings. Did you not notice it either, Crystal?
I don't think I noticed that because I was always using it in the middle of a frenzy of a fight, but that's really cool.
It's just they're just little heads, so that I guess they're just little men that you're shooting at the enemy.
This game's so cool.
It's like Stranger's Wrath, I guess.
Yeah, this definitely does feel in conversation with Oddworld.
See, the thing is I don't want to talk about a litany of other games, but this game does just kind of make me think about a bunch of other games I experienced. I do think Stranger's Wrath is a very analogous to this game kind of situation where a lot of the weapons are Like there is no assault rifle analog in this game. And just having a gun that is basically just like a magic wand that eats fire, or I don't know what the pistols were. It really did. Those pistols felt like a BB gun.
How did you feel about that whole torch at the end of the world section?
If I think about it, I think it is where the obfuscation that this isn't a exceedingly linear experience breaks down the most.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is the section that I would describe as the most transparently video gamey, I suppose.
I agree.
The fact that the ways forward are these kind of just linked by game mechanics with the braziers, and I do think that it is interesting managing a projectile weapon, but I guess it was like when you were saying that every enemy is a character with a name, that ceases to be true here, and then you have the anonymous glassmen running at you.
Yeah, I do think that section is an example of the philosophy of every great game needs one section that kind of sucks. And I appreciate that they were mixing it up a little with like you're catching enemy fireballs and throwing it back at them. And sometimes there's floaters and you have to kill them before they attack you and you have to like defend points. It was a nice change of pace, but I was also very glad when it was over. John, how did you feel about it?
I thought that was maybe the most... I mean, again, I walked away from it being kind of like, okay, I still don't really... I don't know why this happened, kind of. It just felt really random, but also I thought that part was the most interesting part, just because I think that like wand weapon was the most fun weapon to use, and... I don't know, I thought that,
so you liked using the wand?
I did. And, well, more than the other weapons, at least. And I thought that, you know, like the kind of sort of tower defense aspects where you're activating the fire things, the like torches, and then waiting for them to spark up, and so you have to protect them to, you know, you had to kill those little those ghost critter things before they shut it down. Like I thought that was more fun than most of the other gameplay in that game for me. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm just wired completely differently from you all. Like I feel like you all were able to walk away from this with a lot of stuff, and I just kind of went in there. I stuck my head in, and I was just kind of like, all right, I don't know.
To engage with what you said, John, I don't necessarily feel like I don't know. Like let me have there be no illusions. I don't think that I would necessarily go back to this game for a yearly replay or anything. I'm not necessarily like... I guess what I'm trying to say is that I can see the value in things even when they are not my favorite thing in the world.
I mean, sure. I can see that it's, for me, it's more like I can see that there is some value here, but I feel like most of the value is more like in concept than actual execution for me.
So what you're saying is, like, if a game had this kind of level of surrealism, like, it's not like a length or a mechanics or even like a specific aesthetic problem you're having, you just don't think it comes together quite the way you want it to?
I guess. I mean, I don't even think there's anything really that surreal about this game. It's just kind of like, here are these groups and they exist in this world, and that's I don't know. I feel very odd about this, because it's like I'm approaching this, and I'm not feeling like this is a game that necessarily fails at anything. It's just not something that I really care about. I don't know how else to put it. It's like, yeah, like, you know, you're all talking about the deliberation of the combat and how like the guns take so long to reload, and you know how the world is structured, how the characters interact, and like I don't want them to do something differently. I don't think that there is any failure in that. I just, in the way that me as a person exists in this world, I guess I interacted with this piece of art, and there wasn't really anything there for me. And that's kind of it. I just went like, okay, sure, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's perfectly respectable. I've said before that I think the mark of art that I really appreciate is something that is itself enough that I can hate it. If a game is not itself enough that I can't properly hate it, then I would want it to lean more into being itself.
Yeah, and again, like, I just, it's not a hate, it's just, I don't even know if I want to say ambivalence, like, maybe ambivalence, it's just kind of like, yeah, that's, you know, I'm like, this, if you got something out of this, A+ to you, I just did not, and, like, it deserves to exist, but it's just like, I don't really have any specific critiques, because my critique is just basically, I don't know, I didn't like it.
How'd you feel about the little arrows pointing you in direction?
I did need that occasionally because sometimes I would just get kind of lost, and, you know, it's not really the game's fault per se, because it's not like the areas are poorly, you know, like mapped out or whatever. It would just be like, I would knock everybody out, and then I would just be kind of like, all right, where am I going now? Because sometimes they want you to, like, walk up to a specific door, you know, and it's like, how am I supposed to know that without the arrow pointing me there?
I thought the arrows were a very characterful and also very readable version of a waypoint. I thought that's actually something that I think they do better than higher budget games, because sometimes the waypoint blends in too much, but I could always see the arrows.
I think if you're going to include them at all, you might as well fully commit to them being there rather than trying to do a shrug of verisimilitude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, many words have been penned about how disgusting the yellow paint issue is, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like my preference would be for something that is, I guess, less attempting to try for a verisimilitude that isn't there.
Yeah, I think the arrows just accept that, like, if you're lost, you just want to get back on track. Let's not waste time with verisimilitude.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get the verisimilitude once you're back on track.
I do have a thought on the audio in this game.
Mm-hmm.
What do you all think about the voice acting direction in this game?
It's pretty apparent that they just had, like, some folks around, because I think I looked at the credits, and it's like half of the people that are in the credits for design and art and stuff are also in the voice actors, and that's, you know, it's just like, yeah, this is what we had, and so I can't judge them too much, but it was pretty funny that as soon as Father Mother started talking, because I did play some of this with in a Discord call with some friends. As soon as Father Mother talked during a cutscene, one of my friends went, "Holy shit, that came from the game! I thought you were just doing a voice, John. What the fuck?" Like, so I don't know. I guess it sounds like some crazy shit that I would be doing. You know, just like. I pretty immediately busted out that Golem impression where it's just like, I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna tell him to knock it off. You know? There you go. That's everyone's favorite character.
I really liked the voice acting in this game, and I thought it was interesting that in that game developer postmortem, they mentioned that they were not quite happy with the final voice acting, but I loved it. I know that in the 360 version, they re-recorded Deidre's voice, and I went and listened to some of that, and I felt like that was a completely lateral move. How did you feel, Lily?
I feel like the biggest issue I had with it was sometimes it being characterful was at the cost of clarity. I did have to hunt for subtitles at a certain point, especially with the what the heck is his name? The tutorial fighter.
Yeah, that guy.
I had to get the subtitles on because I could not understand him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This benefits from me always turning the subtitles on before I hit new game.
But I feel like it's funny because it kind of exists in a time where, like, in the AAA space, we were starting to see a much more diminishing of the whoever we had in the office type of voice acting, like if you've ever played like the original Thief games, where the voice or System Shock as an example, where people very apparently didn't have a ton of acting experience were doing the voice acting for most of the game, and this kind of reminded me a lot of that at times. I kind of wish that the main character had a little bit more personality in his direction.
Yeah, he's just kind of like there.
I just think that, like, with the characters where it's very clear that they're doing like vocal filters or they're doing the sentient gravel in the case of like Golem or whatever, I think those are fine because I can accept that sound is coming out of an alien being. With the main character, I guess I was just hoping for maybe something a little bit more weird because he just sounds like, I don't know, he just walked out of the Wawa on the way here and he's confused as everyone else.
Yeah, that is an interesting tension in this game, I think, that it's filled with so many strange, grotesque characters, but then the main characters are pretty much normative in body and in voice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to make of that.
I mean, do you think they thought it was like a relatability thing? Like the character needs to be human to get people to empathize? I'm not so sure.
I would imagine.
I don't know. Because that would make sense, but that also feels contradictory to the rest of the game's philosophy of just, we have to be unique to stand out at all. I mean, he does have like a weird tattoo on his face that makes him look like he has a mustache.
I guess this will be like dating in a sense, but he does kind of have the just fuck me up haircut.
Oh, he does, yeah. Yeah, he does.
I mean, I guess that's like, again, where I could highlight a thing, like a grievance I have with this game's conception of weird, because on the Inhuman characters, I could appreciate the seriality. I could appreciate the rat woman with multi-boob and the titty harness or whatever. But the main character feels like he just has random shit taped to him.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if they maybe showed him, I don't know, like gathering shit up after he was escaping, like, oh, he needed to, just grab what he could and make armor out of whatever. But no, he was like that the whole time. So Burrow was just walking around with random bullshit all over him, and that was his life, And I guess that's valid, but
well, at least the other people have like clothes that you could imagine would be utilitarian for a non-industrial society. Like you have people with like tunics and boots, but this guy has like a single piece of shoulder armor and he's got like a thermos on his back.
Yeah.
Do you think that this game has a good sense of a journey, given that it is just like 18 source maps?
I think it leans back into what I said about it feeling like a fever dream. I don't think that necessarily every moment of an adventure is an adventure. It need not be stipulated on how they went from the bog to the swamp to the desert, per se. But I guess I think those transitionary zones would have at least been appreciated to at least show a more transitional feel in terms of how we get from point A to point B, because at times traveling in this game kind of felt like the experience of falling asleep in the car and then you wake up and you're in a different state.
True.
Yeah, I could see that.
It does kind of give you two break points where the characters spend the nights, and those are the points where I decided to take a break from this game to play over a few sessions instead of one long one. I think that definitely helped the sense of journey. Also, did you play this game with the keyboard and mouse or with a controller?
I played it with a keyboard and mouse.
Me too.
How'd you feel about that?
Felt like that was the way that you're supposed to play it, kinda, just the way that it was all mapped out, and I don't know, I liked the mechanics in theory and sometimes in practice, so it felt fine.
Lily?
I almost think I would have liked to also have tried it with a controller. Because I can't immediately say that it would have been better to have everything all in like a clustering of a few buttons, but I feel like the way it wants you to lock on to enemies and then pivot the lock on is way more of a system oriented for controller players.
Yeah.
I am typically very resistant to keyboard and mouse. I tried for like an hour to get the controller mapping to work on this game, and I couldn't get it to work. So I relented and I played keyboard and mouse, and I think that really improved my experience of the game because I'm not used to playing that way. I had like a little bit of hand pain after each session, which felt really appropriate for a first-person punching game. And that's something that's like not really in the developer's control at all, but nevertheless did improve my experience with the game.
I guess that raises an interesting question about the thematic appropriateness of a game being exhausting to play.
Yeah.
Like something like a pathologic, right? Can be in its base mechanics and all of the reading and everything you need to cognitively have. It feels like a bit of mental exercise in a way where it kind of needs you to take frequent breaks. Even though this game was so short, I think there is an imposition of fatigue that demanded I needed to play it in like 5 different sessions.
Yeah, I really like that aspect of it. John, do you have thoughts about this?
No, I mean, I ended up having to play it in multiple sessions, but part of that was just being like, I'm kind of done playing this for now, and then there was also a point where it crashed on me, and then I kind of just went, you know what, that's fine, I'll walk away now.
I think I've kind of developed an aversion to games that try to keep you on the treadmill too long. I like when a game implicitly or explicitly tells me to log off. And I think Zeno Clash does that implicitly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a lot of emphasis with modern game design to have a feeling kind of roughly similar to having loops be presented as a thing where you should always be in the midst of either a small scale or large scale loop, which is what makes like games like RimWorld so addicting to play, because there is always something productive you could be doing. Because this game kind of only has the one loop of its gameplay, it very naturally segues into what feels like an appropriate place to stop, even though the pacing in many ways is what one would call unrelenting.
It's, I am interested in playing the sequel to this, but it is one thing I'm slightly worried about, because that is a more open game and it's a little bit longer, and one of the things I appreciated most about this game is the pacing.
I mean, isn't the sequel almost like an RPG too?
Yeah, I think so. And I know that the third game is like a Yu-Gi-Oh game?
Oh, okay, I didn't know that at all.
Where it's like before every fight you play like some kind of board game to affect how you do. I'm definitely intend to investigate more of Ace Team. They recently released Lethal Company or Left 4 Dead like that's Cthulhu themed and has like insanity effects. I'd love to play that too.
Yeah, like looking at it, I wouldn't necessarily say that they have had a transition to more like, I don't want to say socially acceptable, but I guess the term I'm looking for is like it always seems like they've had their eye on what their insistence on aesthetics like demands.
Mm-hmm.
But we have Zeno Clash, Zeno Clash 2, and I guess the one you're talking about is just Clash.
Yes, Clash.
Well, this one is interesting to me because it seems like for the most part it's going for a completely different art direction.
Yeah, they're mixing it up. It's a little more, it's kind of hewing closer to Borderlands.
Yeah, especially with the vibrance of the colors. Like that is a reasonable complaint I could imagine a person could have with Zeno Clash, is the palette is very Very PS3, I guess I would say.
Mm-hmm. And then the mound is definitely, at least in the promotional screenshots, maybe it gets a little more distinctive when you get deep into the Cthulhu stuff, but that could be like any Unreal Engine 5 game.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the Hunt Showdown to me, I'm not gonna lie.
Yes, it does. But then the Eternal Cylinders, where they really go hard on all of their speculative biology stuff.
I think there is, like, in science fiction, there is a lot of interesting conversations that could be had about how you depict decidedly alien biology. Because, I mean, obviously the boring answer would be to play into carcinization, everything is a crab forever. But I think there is like a Salvador Dali effect to a lot of the ways they conceive of alien biology.
What do you mean by that?
I think that, like, a lot... I don't want to just lean into using the word surreal over and over again, but I do think there is kind of like a inherent dreamlike plasticity to the way biological forms are handled. Obviously, there are inspiration points between, real animals, but there are definitely creatures, especially in something like the Eternal Cylinder, where there are, like, creatures that are just a cube. Where, like, biology is rarely quite so interested in orthogonals, and they want to play with things that are very deeply surreal, but maybe aren't what one would call biologically viable.
I think maybe the word I'd use for it is confidently imposing. Here's just a thing that exists, and you have to deal with the fact that this is what you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. Like, that there was a lot of points with that in something like Zeno Clash, where you just kind of see a character design and you're like, oh, okay, sure.
Because even though this Zeno Clash is like grotesque, I don't think it's playing it up too much. It's very matter of fact about its grotesqueness, and I think that invites a sort of empathy. That this is just a creature in the world.
Maybe for some of them. When we did that first sniper battle, I did not like the thing they were standing on top of.
You didn't like that dinosaur?
How do I explain this? It's kind of like a fucked up hippo giraffe elephant type thing that aesthetically reads to me as very mucusy in a way I don't like aesthetically.
It's too gross.
It's too gross. It reminds me of a creature that came out of, like, The Fifth Element or something.
I wonder if they watched Ah Real Monsters. Some of this reminds me of Ah Real Monsters.
Maybe I'm too young for that reference to hit.
I understood that reference, but I mean, I feel like Ah Real Monsters is a bit more boisterous,
cartoony in its grotesqueness.
Yeah, it's a bit more boisterous. I think it's not trying to. I feel like Zeno Clash's characters and animals and all that, they definitely, they're weird and strange, but I don't know. I think there is a point to it where it's at least a little believable.
I mean, I think a big part of that is because of the engine it's on. Like, the lighting of, like, a Source Engine game is inherently going to be, at least, like, from vanilla without modding, going to be a lot more grounded than maybe something like a cartoonier game.
Yeah, the way that they did the lighting is kind of interesting, where the reason they chose the Source Engine, which they previously did not have experience with, is because it would basically guarantee that they would get distributed on Steam, back when Steam was more selective about which games they distributed. But because Source is designed for, like, more blocky environments, they instead had to make all the models in 3D Max and just bake the lighting into them and then import it into the Source Engine, which means that every time they wanted to adjust the lighting, they would have to, like, redo everything all over again.
Maybe this is a a controversial opinion in the era of ray tracing and everything like that, but I kind of like baked lighting when it's done well.
I love baked lighting. It looks good and it's really efficient.
I just, and I don't think that this is just nostalgia talking, or I guess nostalgia for a period I didn't live through, but I just, there is always something to the diorama style approach of things like skyboxes being bitmaps and things like that. And I almost wish they had leaned into that kind of thing more. And you could obviously say that it's like a savvy business decision at the time this came out, but I almost wish it had chosen to evade immersing itself in like the source engine just for pragmatism's sake.
It's one of those things where, like, I guess it's interesting to me that Zeno Clash is such a unique thing that has such a strong sense of its personal art style, but it is still part of the world and is still shaped by business concerns. Because I don't think this game could have sold anything without digital distribution, because even the most like unique artistic works are still bounded by history, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And I think that's interesting to investigate.
Well, it's all art is a product of the compromise with material conditions.
Exactly.
I can't be a watercolor painter if I can't afford watercolors.
Yeah. That's about all I have to say about Zeno Clash. Anyone else have some closing subjects?
I think my ideas are all tied up.
I'm good.
All right. This is the first time, at least since I've been here, that we've done a game club format. How do we feel about this?
I mean, I liked being able to have a discussion around a singular topic, though I guess I did have one more question.
Yeah?
This was ultimately your idea, Crystal. What made you choose Zeno Clash as the first game for this kind of concept?
I knew that it was very short, and I think that is good for getting people to play along. And I knew that it was very unique. And I also knew that it's one of my boyfriend's favorite games.
Fair enough.
Would we like to do something like this again next month?
I'm not against the idea. I mean, it would highly... obviously, there was a factor that I already owned this game that made it more feasible. But I'm not against the idea. I'd love to try it with something else, or even have someone else put forward a game. Or, I guess in another sense, if we were doing it on that kind of time scale, it wouldn't be so bad of an idea to have it be play as far as you can get with the time you have and give the impression you have. So that way it need not be restricted to games that are necessarily always short.
Sure, yeah. I think... Can I leave the decision up to you for next month's Game Club?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay. And, I mean, you mentioned that you already owned it, but we can spend chooch bucks on Game Club.
Fair enough.
Well, alright. John, closing thoughts?
I mean, this is a neat concept. I do think that maybe it would be cool to do something like this, on top of the regular podcast, but I guess we could talk about that later, you know?
Likelihood on a Zeno Clash YouTube poop, John.
I can look that up right now. I'm going to say non-zero, because this was a... one of the first things I saw on the store page was that if you bought this game, the models got added to your Gmod roster. So, I mean, even if it's not like an actual, like, oh, we... messed with the cutscenes. At the very least, I'd have to imagine there's some real dumb bits that people have done in Gmod.
The source filmmaker experience.
Absolutely. I'm not seeing anything like that. I did look up Zeno Clash YTP, and the only thing that came up was Oni Plays, and I don't care for that, so that's fine.
Well, when art does not exist, it is the responsibility of the audience to make it.
I suppose so.
How do we usually close out these podcasts? We have like plugs, right? Hold on. I'm opening up the document. All right, here we go. Website, gamesline.net. You can follow us on Blue Sky at gamesline.net, on YouTube at youtube.com/thegamesline, twitch.tv/gameslinetv. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/gamesline. You can join the Discord at thegamezone.zone. Our music is made by Milk Channel / Magic Circuit. Our theme song is called Crush off the album Magic is Real. Find that at milkchannel.bandcamp.com.
There you go.
Where can we all be found on the digital space?
You find me at crystal.undertow.cards on Blue Sky. John, how about you?
I'm john.gamesline.net on B-Sky.
I can be found at galalis.bsky.social when the website is working.
And would you like to close out with a Zeno joke?
A Zeno joke?
Yeah, upjoke.com /Zeno-jokes. Once again, I'm checking out this book, Greek Philosophers, from Aristotle to Zeno. I've never finished it for some reason. I see, you didn't laugh, which makes you think it wasn't very funny.
It's a thinker, you know. You sometimes you have to think about them.
Yeah, like Aristotle was thinking, you know?
Here we go. I'm reading a book about Zeno's paradox. I'm not quite halfway through it. Zeno jokes suck. These are not good.
No, they're
What
not.
about Clash jokes? Okay, here we go. There's no good Clash jokes. Okay, that's it.
No.
Goodbye, everybody.
Clash is dismissed.
There we go.